Hello, this is WZRD Chicago 88.3 FM, and we have with us at the WZRD Stuart Seale, keyboardist for the Raíces. How are you, Stu?
I'm so good. I'm so good. How are you?
Very well. So we have a very early interview today, and could you tell us what is your itinerary like for the next several days?
Raíces is going to be performing a show at Studio 5 in Evanston on um on Friday, December 6th. And so that's one thing that I'm really looking forward to. Got a couple more rehearsals with some other groups this week and a couple other performances, but I think we're here to talk about Raíces.
Raíces, of course.
Yeah.
So, tell me how you became involved with Raíces. Was it were you part of the formation of the band, or were you brought aboard? Tell us.
Oh, all right. So Raíces was started a while ago, maybe um, by Ruben Alvarez. He's a master percussionist on the Chicago jazz scene, and he sort of put this group together originally to be sort of modeled after Cal Tjader's quintet in the 1950s and 50s and 60s. Um, and so I started playing with the group probably around 2018 or so. Um, I think as a substitute for their regular piano player and ended up playing a bunch more with the group. Unfortunately, Ruben passed pretty recently in, I believe, 2022. And we kept the group going. We were actually able to record an album while he was alive. He had sort of stopped playing because he had a chronic respiratory illness. Um, and he was able to hear the record and listen to the music, give us suggestions and stuff while we were able to change it, and um, gave Joe Sonnefeld, our vibes player, the go ahead to keep the group going. And so we play a lot of this music to honor Ruben Alvarez and his compositions, which we also play, and his musicality and his legacy.
When he was when Ruben was advising Raíces, usually what did he concentrate on? What was the most important thing that he had to advise on?
Well, he was a master percussionist, so he always had very specific concepts, rhythmic concepts, um, to talk to our great players. Jorge Leal, who took over the conga chair when Ruben stopped being able to play congas, and Bobby Delgado, our excuse me, Bobby Delgado, our timbalero, but also he'll play drum set on this upcoming concert. So he had great suggestions for their feel and their groove, but he was a complete musician. He listened to every part of the band, sort of had a vision of how it could sound, but also it was never stifling. He sort of wanted us to play our best in whatever we brought to the music. Um, so he offered some specific guidance and some encouragement to explore ideas on our own.
What's the greatest challenge of everybody playing to such fast beats together?
Yeah, that's a good question. So in this sort of Cuban uh, and sometimes Brazilian music that we're playing, um, the rhythm can be very fast. And there's a lot of different layers of rhythm happening. The conga can play a certain kind of rhythm, and then layered over that, the timbales. And upcoming this Friday, we have another master percussionist, Joe Rendon, who will be joining the group, and he'll play some auxiliary percussion, some shekere, and the guiro. And so that's three people concentrating specifically on rhythm. But And then the bass player is playing the tumbao under everything, which is its own kind of rhythm. And then I'm the piano player, so that comes with sort of another layer of rhythm and harmony. And then we have vibes on top of that, which is another layer of rhythm and harmony. But when you're listening to it, um, your brain can pick out the specific kinds of rhythms, or you can sort of listen to the bigger underlying rhythm. And that rhythm can, depending on how you hear it, it can be a little slower and sort of easy to manage without getting kind of bogged down in all of the notes. Ideally, that's kind of what we're listening to if we're doing it right.
For the underlying rhythm, is everybody on that underlying rhythm, or is there one an instrument or two that is concentrates on maintaining that underlying rhythm?
So that underlying rhythm will be the clave, usually, and that is can I the clave is sort of it sounds like this, and that's sort of like the compass in the song, and that repeats over and over again. And sometimes that's played on a bell, sometimes it's played on kind of like a block, sometimes it's played on the actual claves. And so you can either hear it directly or you sort of it's sort of implied in a lot of other instruments and their rhythms.
What about you as a keyboardist? Are your rhythms uh a little slower than the percussionists, or this is the same?
Um, so my rhythm is supposed to sort of work within their their greater rhythm.
Mhm.
So as far as like fast and slow, it wouldn't be um I don't necessarily think of it as faster or slower. I think of it as sort of fitting in kind of like a puzzle.
Filling
Um,
the gaps?
yeah, filling in the gaps. It has its own specific role that sort of comes from this guitar, the tres or the cuatro, um, from Cuban music, and the montuno pattern that you probably hear a lot in this music is what the guitar players would strum, their individual strumming pattern.
Has there ever been a quattro player in the races?
We did have a guitar player during Ruben's era, Jonathan Gould, great guitar player. He isn't playing with this group right now. I think the group sort of just got a little smaller, just to be a little bit more manageable. But he's a great player, and he actually made his own cuatro and would bring it out and play it, which was kind of cool to have piano and cuatro, the instrument that this sort of piano part was based on, and the piano itself, sort of overlapping and playing that sort of role in the group.
What's his name again? The quattro player that used to play with you?
Jonathan Gould.
John Doe. Okay. Doesn't seem to be the person we interviewed. There was another person that we interviewed that was a quattro player, and he I think grew up in Puerto Rico, and then he learned to make the instruments. He made all his own instruments, his own
Oh,
quattro.
that's amazing.
Mhm.
That's amazing. Beautiful.
I see that when the races are playing, they as like in other jazz bands, you uh, give time to for the solos, and then how do you break off the rhythm and then uh, make the soloist be at the forefront?
Oh, thank you for that question. So this Friday on Studio 5, the group is playing Soul Sauce, a Cal Tjader album from like 1964, which we're excited about. And so we're playing those songs on that record. But as you were asking about, during the improvisation process, um, we are making up the music as it comes to us in real time. So, though that we're playing the songs from Soul Sauce, we're sort of bringing in during the improvisation sections we're bringing in our own music. We're not playing a note for note transcription of this. We're bringing ourselves to this. And it's kind of, a lot of jazz, a lot of this Latin jazz and jazz music has its own form. So you play the song, and then there's an improvising section in the middle, and then you play the song again. After going through this sort of improvisation journey, you come back to the melody, and then you end the song in maybe a special way, maybe kind of a way that people are used to hearing it end. Um, and so this section in the middle, when we get there, it's kind of up for grabs. We sort of look at each other. If somebody's feeling the spirit, they take the first solo and we accompany them. So everybody else understands that this soloist is going to sort of take the reins and play what they're feeling. And then it's our job to sort of maintain the structure of the song underneath the soloist, but also to move with the soloist if we're getting excited, if we're going understated, and we're taking our cues visually and orally and every sense that we can muster to try and support the soloist and their vision during that section of the music. And when the soloist is done, hopefully they'll end and pass, kind of like pass the baton in like a relay race.
So they work it into their performance, their solo performance, that little connection that for someone else to pick up.
Yeah, and they work that into usually the end of their solo to bring us into the next soloist or the song again. And then there's certain different breaks for different soloists. Sometimes for the percussion, the band will just do some hits and then let the percussion just take it themselves. So when I say hits, I mean the bass and the keyboards and the vibes. Just play a couple smashes and then we let the percussionists go to town. There are three of them. So there's a whole lot going on there. You don't need us, really.
What was your first solo performance like? Do you still remember it?
Oh, with this band?
Oh, no, you're
Oh, just
well,
when I was a
both.
kid.
Your first ever as a performer and with this
Mm.
band.
Wow. Um, well, as a performer, I started taking piano lessons in about third grade. So probably around then, I had a recital. I wasn't super excited about piano. I was like into playing hockey and soccer and a bunch of different sports. And I was a terrible piano student. Um, but I did love it, and I kind of came back to it when I was in college. And I sort of fell in love with jazz music. And started kind of playing with the jazz band in school. I had some people next to me in the dorms who were jazz players, and I kind of wanted to figure out how it worked. So that was probably my first improvised solo in front of people. Was in college. Um, with this band, I was kind of nervous to play with them because I had heard about Ruben from friends. He was a teacher at Columbia College, um, and Roosevelt at different points in his career. And I just heard he was just such a great person and a great player and just brought this spirit and warmth to the music. So I was really nervous to play with the group just because I'd heard so much about this person, this percussionist. But I was happy to get the call, and it was probably at a place like, I'm kind of blanking on the name. It was on Ashland and uh,
Yeah,
I want to
the
say
church.
Fullerton, like Paladar used to be.
Oh, mm,
But it doesn't exist anymore. But it was sort of like a restaurant that had live Cuban music, and I got to play with the group, and it's just a joy. It was a joy um, to play with these master musicians.
mm. When you did your first solo in college, so were you nervous or no?
Oh, of course, of course. And you still get nervous. I'll probably be nervous this Friday at Studio 5 a little bit. as everybody's listening intensely. But um, when you keep playing, you sort of have to sort of realize that you have what you have and you're there. So the best you can do is the best you can do. And you just kind of have to have that kind of acceptance. Otherwise, you'll be paralyzed when you're trying to improvise. You kind of have to like shut off the judgmental circuits in your brain and just kind of go and just sort of trust where your spirit takes you and hope that your fingers do the right thing. Or in my case, my fingers do the right things.
When you decided to go back and take up the piano again, you said that when you were younger, you were interested in sports and hockey.
Mhm.
Were you able to apply any sports concepts and hockey concepts to your music?
Um, yes, actually. So growing up playing sports, it's a team activity. You're sort of part of this group, and let's take hockey. It's a group of five people on the same team on the ice. I mean, six if you include the goalie. And you're sort of kind of making these shapes together, and you're passing this puck around. Um, and I mean, you have an opposing team, but when you're working as a team, um, it's really similar to how I approach this music. I'm not a piano soloist. I usually don't play by myself. I look at music as a group activity, and sort of like a team sport. And you transition from being in a supportive role, especially with this improvised music, to a leading role and back and forth, just like in hockey, as you're either have the puck and you're making it happen, or you're providing support in other ways to the person who does have the puck. And I think, it's all kind of connected with that sort of team mentality. And what's best for you is not having the puck all the time. What's best for you is what's best for the team and creating sort of the conditions for glory and fun and togetherness. And that's kind of really applicable to music, for sure. Team sports. I do kind of miss it, but don't really have time right now to jump back on the hockey court. The rink. Called it a court. It's not even a court.
So you mentioned that you just have what you have, and then you work it the best that you could. However, when you're working with what you have, do you ever suddenly have inspiration that there's a little bit more than you could aspire to that goal because you have an epiphany of what might also be?
Yeah, yeah. Sometimes while you're improvising, uh, if you're able to kind of get out of your head or, get out of the conscious part of thinking about creating this music and all the technical hurdles and everything, if you're able to sort of get to that place and the people around you are supporting you in a way that helps you get to that place, um, then those are the conditions where a moment of inspiration or some clarity about either what the song is about or about a musical idea that you're going through or about a way to express, some, strange feeling inside of you in a new way. Um, when those conditions are sort of there, that can happen. And I feel like a lot of, what we're doing as improvising musicians is trying to create those conditions for that to happen. And you can't plan for that to happen. Um, it, when it does happen, it can usually be just for a very short amount of time in the midst of a solo, maybe just a couple seconds. Maybe if you're lucky, it can last for a longer period of time. But we're all, I feel like, striving for those kind of moments that you were describing, those moments of inspiration or clarity or um, just honesty and clearness. Um, and trying to help create those conditions for whoever is improvising.
So since the band has played together so long, do you feel that when the other band members are improvising, that you could hear that they've suddenly become inspired, that they're stepping out of the zone into inspiration. Like you said that sometimes it happens to you for maybe 1 or 2 seconds, and luckily, if lucky, longer. But do you recognize that happening when it happens to your bandmate?
Um, that's yeah. So sometimes you can feel it happening with somebody else. But other times, you know, while you're listening, um, you can sort of have that moment through their improvisation. And it's kind of funny. Afterwards, you'll talk to them like, oh, wow, you really played this special thing in this chorus of this song. And that was beautiful. And then they say, "Oh, well, I don't remember. I was just doing my thing." And you're like, "Oh man!" So you can sort of have that experience through somebody else, and they don't necessarily have it themselves, and that's sort of a testament to um, how this music can affect people in ways that you don't even understand. Um, and sometimes, you see it sort of happen, and then you mention it to the player, during the set break. You say, "Hey, Jorge, you really hit something in that conga solo." And then you'd be like, "Oh, yeah, I don't know. There's something happened." So we sort of try and acknowledge those special moments.
Well, oftentimes it seems as if every performance is so special. Do your performances usually get recorded by the venue or by
Uh,
someone?
you, Usually our performances aren't recorded. However, this Friday, part of Studio Five's kind of mission is to um, create some really high quality video and audio recordings of all of their concerts and for later radio play on 90.9 FM. Um, and so it's really great to play there because they have a beautiful piano. Um, they actually bring in like a very fancy rug from a local rug store. Um, so they have art happening on art, and they have a full video setup, great microphones and sound. So afterwards, we can hear sort of how we were feeling that night. It's kind of cool. It's great to have recordings, but I feel like for improvising musicians, it's cool to have a recording for to capture a moment in time. But I feel like we're always looking towards what's going to happen next time we play. Um, and the recording is a nice memento, but we're kind of looking towards the next thing.
It means like you really don't concentrate on what happened in the past, even though you might want to listen to it, but you're more focused on the next performance, is what you're
Yeah,
saying.
yeah. I mean, it's as a player, as a musician, it's very it's important to listen to yourself, and you can learn so much listening to yourself, catching these things that you do. You're like, oh, why do I do that? I did that twice. Why did I do that twice? Um, or small things, or then like, you think in your head like, oh, this idea didn't come out right. I flubbed this, I flubbed that, and you can listen to it 2 weeks later and think, oh, that was okay. And not really, it's a different experience to listen to it than it is to create it in real time. Um, so you can learn a lot from listening. But yeah, not a lot of venues do record us while we play. It's kind of cool when it happens, but that's not why we're doing it.
What about that rug that you were talking about, that beautiful rug? Is it for aesthetic purposes, or is it does it help acoustically as well?
I think a little of both. With the rug, it will sort of dampen the sound a little bit, and there's a giant piano over it, so that'll sort of help with the acoustics. It's sort of in a dance studio, which is not necessarily, you know, specifically treated for audio stuff, even though they've done work on it to make sure it sounds great in there, which it does. Um, so, but I think mainly, I think it's sort of an aesthetic sort of thing, and sort of to bring sort of the local businesses and communities together, and just have a beautiful piece of artwork on the ground that maybe can help bring us to that inspired place that we want to get to.
Your music, the Raíces' music is very danceable. Is there room on that dance floor for the audience to uh, get up and dance?
Well, as we play, thank you. This music started as dance music. This is party music. This is music to move around from. And sometimes, jazz and, this specific, this Latin music can be sort of concertized and sort of like people are sitting and watching instead of moving and, having a party. Um, at Studio 5, I haven't seen people dance at Studio 5. At a bunch of our other gigs, people get up and dance for sure. Especially when we play outdoor festivals, things like that. People are moving and grooving. This place is kind of like has sort of like almost like movie theater seats and like little sort of tables up around. So it's not set up for dancing, as I think because they're doing a filming and a recording for the radio. Um, so I don't think this is a place to come and expect to dance, but I don't think anybody would mind if people danced.
So this is not your first time at Studio 5 then?
Yes, our band has played there twice actually before, and oh, once or twice. And we have we played our original pieces. What's kind of special about this time at Studio 5 is we're playing the album Soul Sauce by Cal Tjader, which I had mentioned before, which was a hit in like 1960, mid 1960s, like 1965, the 60th anniversary of their release next year. So we're going to be playing this a couple of times because we have the same instrumentation as Cal Tjader's band, and this sort of concept of our band was modeled after Cal Tjader's concept. He was a great vibes player and brought in a bunch of different Latin musicians and composers into his band and played this music all over the world. He actually started as a drummer in Dave Brubeck's band, which is pretty wild. Um, and was in the army, learned vibes, and started writing music and loving this music. And anyhow, we're playing uh, this record um, that was, I believe it was recorded on November 20th, 1964, or most of the dates, some of the dates on the record were, which was actually our founder, Ruben's birthday. Not the birth year, but November 20th, I believe. Um, so yeah, we're really excited to kind of explore this music. Um, Joe, our leader, the vibraphone player, transcribed a bunch of the music. I also transcribed a couple of the songs, which means we listened to it and wrote out the parts, made sure we could sort of approximate, the melodies to the best of our ability, and sort of that's the structure which we'll improvise in. And we'll play the album in order because it's pretty cool.
Do the Raíces have any of their own music and recordings and like CDs or or vinyl?
Yeah, we have a self-titled CD, and we have our own music. Sorry, my cord got all. um, yeah, Raíces has recorded one record with me on it, and we have a couple compositions from Joe Sonnefeld on there, some original ones there, some original ones from Ruben, our founder, and I believe there's one song on there by our great bass player Eric Ferrer, um, and we've written some more music, and we're kind of looking forward to getting into the studio next year to record some of it, and including some of my compositions as well. I'm excited about that, and yeah, we try and keep um, two things happening at the same time. We're trying to sort of play some of the music that we love and that we've listened to and that has influenced this group, like the Cal Tjader music from Soul Sauce, and also to be adding to the canon by creating our own work that is sort of rooted in the traditions, but is also relevant to our experience now.
I tried looking for recordings to listen to on YouTube, and I found only one. And then I also found the performance that you did, your group that the Raíces did at WGN. So those are
Oh
the
yeah.
two that I found.
Yeah, we played on WGN last week,
Mhm.
the day before Thanksgiving, and that was quite a fun experience in that little studio right there. Um, it's interesting to get to see how all these productions work and how quickly everything happens. Um, and yeah, we had a great time.
And what is the name of the album that you did uh, put out?
So we put out an album called Raíces. So
Oh,
it's
okay.
self-titled.
Uh,
Um, I believe I've got a copy of it right here. This is what it looks like.
oh,
And you can find it on Spotify and um, all of the streaming platforms. And you can also purchase a copy on Joe Sonnefeld's website, joesounds.com.
would you spell it for us?
Joe's website.
Yes.
I will. I just want to make sure. Uh, JoeSounds.
Oh, .com?
JoeSounds.com.
Okay,
Yep, that is the website. That's Joe's website, and he's got a whole section on it for Raíces.
wonderful. Well, if our listeners want to learn more, should they go to this website? Is there anywhere else that they could go for? Also on Spotify, right? And what other streaming platforms if they want to learn more and hear more from the Raíces?
You should be able to find it anywhere you look, on iTunes and yeah, if you come to our shows, you can pick up a CD there too. If you want to see our schedule, yeah, joesounds.com. That will always have the our latest dates. So will my website, stuartseale.com. Um, that's STUARTSEALE.com. That has all the public shows that I do, including some that aren't Raíces. They're different groups, but all the Raíces shows will be on there for sure.
And again, time and date of the Raíces show at Studio 5.
Raíces will be playing at Studio 5 on December 6th. The show will start at 6:30, and we're going to play two sets of music. We're going to play all of Cal Tjader's Soul Sauce from front to back.
And that's in Evanston, right?
That is in Evanston.
Okay. Okay. Stuart Seale of the Raíces, keyboardist for Raíces. Thank you so much for joining us on WZRD Chicago 88.3 FM. Good luck on your show and good luck on all your music as well.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure talking to you, and have a great rest of your day.
You too. Likewise.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye.